you're anything like me, you probably like to base every decision that you make in life on this one question. Could I die doing this? If the answer is yes, then I'm like, I'll do it. I assume that's how you guys do it too. Josh is shaking his head because I can see when we start doing the things that are dangerous, which is constantly, he's got this look and I've got this look. Because I don't care. I got a death wish. It's been decades now. Anyway, so as you can clearly tell, before we only had like, I don't know, 2 toothpicks up or whatever, and we were holding it up with bubble gum. But now it's very solid. So we still got to do an end piece over here, some other things. But we thought it was time to show you what in the world we were doing. So there you go. Now you know. You feel like you learned something? I hope so. Typically, most fights are caused because somebody's hungry, somebody's tired, or somebody has to poop. Okay? Now you're thinking, no, but it's true. And you're like, no, it's because they did this and this and this. It doesn't matter what they did. You were hungry or tired or had to poop, and that thing triggered you and you allowed it to, and then there's a division between you guys. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, and then somebody started talking trash, and somebody else started talking trash, this went on, blah, 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 it escalated, and next thing you know, you hate each other. But at one time you were friends, right? The worst thing about betrayal is that betrayal happens by somebody that you love, somebody that you trusted. And so that makes it even worse. And then you're so hurt by this and so shocked by this that you feel like you have to tell other people. It eats away at you if you don't tell other people. And when that happens, then you're like this, I need to tell other people. And then they tell other people and the word gets back to them. Next thing you know, you got this World War III going on, or World War IV. I don't know which one we're on right now. But if somebody can stop that and humble themselves and go back and say, you know what? I'm sorry for my part in this, and I forgive you for your part in this. I want to be friends again. And just let it go and not bring it up again. That to me is a beautiful thing. You ever experienced that? How do we do that last board? So look, we've got rafters and they're long to short. And so this is a 3/12 pitch, which means a 15-degree angle. How do you know that? Get in here real close. You see that's a 3/12 and that's a 15-degree angle, right? So we've got one side of that is going to be 15 degrees. But how do we do this side? Because it's going to land right on top of the other board. How do we know what that long, weird angle is? Let's take a look. We've already measured. It's 151 inches from that point to over here. That's where our point is, okay? But then we know that this is 15 degrees. And then all total, we're at 90 degrees because, you know, science, which leaves us with 75 degrees. So if you come here to the pivot point, see where it says pivot? You do. And then we go way out here. My hand's been doing the way I think. To 75 degrees. You see where it says 75 right there? Boom goes the dynamite. And we're gonna mark that, and then we're gonna carry that line on. Now, we're gonna keep going, but I made another one for the other side, so I've got a template already. So it'll be like this, and that, we'll cut that off, and that'll be that board right there. Because that's how science works. And by science, I mean geometry. I have a question for you, because I think about a lot of things. How many miles have you driven in your life? I'm assuming you keep a tally. And how many of those miles have been in the wrong direction? And how many times did you know you were going in the wrong direction, and then you just kept going? Now, why am I asking that? Because I think in our life, like driving, you're like, well, that's stupid. Now, my brother was in a band, and I'm not going to say who the band was or whatever, but they were touring, and it was somebody's turn to drive, and they had their tour bus or whatever, and so they're like, hey, keep going east until we get to Mississippi or whatever, right? And they were in Louisiana, and so they all went to sleep, and he started driving, and he drove them to Texas, which is west, in case you're not good with geography, okay? And then they finally woke up like, we gotta be like in Alabama or something, right? And he's like, no, we're in Texas. And they're like, Texas? Texas? He's like, yeah, man, you said go west, right? And they're like, no, go east. But he just kept going, right? And I think that in our lives, people do that a lot. They're like, I feel like this is the wrong thing. People tell me it's the wrong thing, but I'm not gonna stop doing it. I'm gonna keep going. You're like, eventually, you're gonna have to turn around and undo all this nonsense you're doing, right? So maybe think about that. Maybe be like, you know, it's not a dumb thing to do the right thing. It's a very smart thing to do the right thing. All right, so speaking of doing the right thing, today we put our post up, obviously. We got our ceiling joist up, we got our rafters up, and we got it decked. So that was truly magnificent. And also we like took a lot of time to we played Parcheesi, we played a game of Clue. What's some other games we played? Mexican Train with dominoes. We played, there's a Candy Crush. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but I remember I was in Africa, like in a Hadza village in Tanzania, and something came and I saw it floating. I'm like, oh, what is that? And then it landed like right in front of me. I'm like, interesting. And I opened it up and there was a note inside. I'm like, and it said, you've been invited to play Candy Crush. I was like, no way. So then we played it today. I finally had some time, and I gotta say, it's delightful. Josh is like, that didn't happen. Oh, yeah, I was just admiring, like, I'm so proud of us because these engineered documents were very difficult and complex. I don't know if you can see like all the detail on this, but wow. And we studied what the engineers put together for us. And I think we nailed it. Don't you think? I mean, that looks pretty much like, okay, yeah, there's a triangle and then we make a big rectangle and there's another triangle on the other side and 3 sticks. Yeah, go us. So if you're anything like me, people ask you advice all the time, right? And then when you first meet them or when they first ask the question, maybe you think, okay, here's what I would do. But then they listen, they nod, and they never do it. But then they come back to you again and they ask you the same question for the same problem. And I'm like, we've been through this. I told you the answer to that. And then they're like, yeah, but I want a different answer. I'm like, well, buddy, this is the answer. And so when this pattern repeats, and because there's some people that just want attention, and it doesn't matter what the problem is, they just want to always have a problem because they feed off of that, and they're like, I don't know, emotional vampires or something. And so pretty quick, like you'll see me like, oh, I'm talking to you on the outside, and on the inside, I'm like, disengage. I just put it in neutral, and I'm coasting. I'm like, man, you're here with the same problem again? Here's the answer. And when they say no, I'm just like, oh, let's change the subject, whatever, I don't care. I'm not there anymore, right? Like I am, but I'm not. Oh, hey there. So yesterday, somebody said, John, how do you know where to put the boards? Let me explain. First, I had my engineer draw all this up. It was wonderful. I've got a audience over here. It's great. Then I measured my Bobcat and measured how tall and wide and whatever it was, and I measured my Traco, my excavator, and measured how tall that was. Now I want to be at least 9 feet tall, okay? But the excavator really is on the taller side. And I don't want to feel like I'm barely getting in. So here's what I did. I measured off of here, because this is my like lowest point because the ground grades down, and I went 9 feet to here, and I went level across. Okay, so then we nailed this board up. Then from there, we came at this point and came level down and made a mark on the ground. Over there, we did the same thing. We made a mark on the ground. And then we measured between those two, 238 or whatever. And then we came out 238 inches and we chalked the line over here. Then we took a piece of OSB and laid it square up against the house because this is a straight wall, and then chalked the line off of that. Then we measured from that distance another 238 and then chalked the line over here. Then we measured corner to corner and made sure we were square. We weren't, so we had to adjust a little bit. It wasn't much. And then we got it, and it was 307.5 inches both directions. So that meant that we were square, which is great. Now, from that point, what we did is where this intersection was, we drilled this riser in, and then one on the other side, we measured and split the difference and went with this one in the middle, and it was great. Then we did an upright, and we put a nailer board here, and then we nailed this on, and while Josh was on that side, I was over here, and I was holding this board up and holding this board up. He brought a level, he put the level here so that we knew that we weren't gonna be out, and I put a level on top of this board. Then I nailed that. Then we were like, we're out of hands. How are we gonna get the next one up? No worries. We put a brace from here to that large stake that naturally grew in the ground for us, and we leveled it this direction and this direction, and then we nailed it to the stake, so that's clearly more secure than one of us is. Then we came over here and put this 4x4 up. We came level across. That was great. We did the same thing, and then we braced off of this large stake. Then we went with this upright and kind of did the same thing, and we made sure everything was square, and we triangulated that, and it was great. From that point, it was easy, right? We just went every 16 inches, and we put these ceiling joists up, everywhere, and that was pretty simple. Then we did a rat run, and a rat run gives it strength, right? So we nailed down to all this, and then we had 2x12 left over from another job. We could have done 2x6, would have been just fine. And that gave us stability. Then I was able to walk up on it. From that point, I know that this is 12 feet out, and we're doing the 312 pitch, so let me tell you what that measurement is. It's 3 feet, all right? That doesn't take a genius. So from this point, 3 feet up to the top of that point up there. Then we leveled that board off. We nailed it across, and from there, we measured from there to over here and made our rafters, and then we just nailed those in. That was relatively simple. The two end boards we had to do a little bit differently because they lay on top of this board, right? So this had to be a 75-degree angle right there. And then we put decking on it. So pretty simple. That's how you do it. You're welcome, Justin Flug. Love you, mean it. As many of you know, I'm a huge sports fan. But here's my biggest problem. I don't know if you noticed my shirt, but I'm a cracker. So let's see how this goes. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is how you play hockey, right? I'm gonna try to get a hole-in-one, and let's just see if I can do it. It's not that far, so I think I can get it. Ready? Hold on. I'm gonna get closer. Just give me a second, man. I'm really good at this. Okay, so this is more like a mid 3-point shot or something like that. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try I would get a little bit closer because I think this is how you get was it field goal? Yeah, okay. How can I miss it? This is why I don't play sports. Darn it. Okay, there. So it's been 28 minutes, and we got the soffit up, and we got the gable sides. We got OSB on them. So I'm gonna go and get some hardy, and then we're gonna get hardy on this thing and paint it and stuff, and then put a roof on it. So that'll be amazing. Now, a lot of people, I hear it all the time. They're like, I can't wait till Jesus gets back. But the implied thing is, and I know their meaning and their intention and what it actually sounds like in the results. So what you're saying is, my heart cries to be home to heaven. I wanna get there. I can't wait for Jesus to get back. I want to be done with this suffering. I want to be done with this pain, this world we're living under curse, and I'm over it. But what it sounds like to some people is, I'm too lazy to do the work right now while I'm still here. It sounds like I'm too much of a coward to actually do something, so I'm just going to wait because Jesus will be back any minute. And you're like, he might. He could be back any minute. Might be another 1,000 years. We don't know. I think we're living in the last days. I could be wrong. But here's what I do know. When Jesus comes back, he will find me with my hand on the plow. He will find me doing the work and what he told me to do. Because when I leave and I tell my helpers, hey, I need you to do this till I get back, and I get back and they haven't done it, but they're like, hey, we had a bunch of meetings about it, I'm like, unimpressed. And when they're like, we talked about it and this seemed cooler, so we decided to do this. I'm like, you decided to go swimming instead of build what I told you to build? And they're like, yeah, pretty cool, right? I'm like, it is, but it's not what I asked you to do. And so I think it's important that we do what he told us to do. Now, let's be clear, what is that? Love the lost, love each other, love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. If you're doing that, maybe you're not so concerned about like, I can't wait for everything to end. I'm just too lazy to deal with it. Maybe instead you're like, I'm excited about this. Like, life is full and people are kind and I want to help people and I want to see, because look, the longer that Jesus waits to come back, and I know we want him to come back, that is him having mercy on us and on other people. If Jesus had come back, I don't know, 35 years ago, I'd be in hell, straight up. But he didn't. He waited and he had mercy and he had patience till I got there. And we need to do that with other people. We need to be like, I'm going to love you until you get here. So think about that while you're on the toilet or whatever. Oh, hey there. So imagine for a moment that you're a piece of water. And I'm pretty sure that's the correct term, not a drop or a gallon or a gusher of water, but a piece of water. And you are falling from the sky from I don't know how high. And you're like this. Because water goes downhill because of gravity. I don't know if, I feel like we're using up all our gravity, we're running out. So like, try to be careful with your gravity. Sounds about as intelligent as other things. The water's falling. But then all of a sudden it gets this roof and it's like, I'm just gonna go back here and rot everything out. You see all this? How would you stop that? Flashing. That's what this stuff is. Okay. So this flashing comes here and underneath here to that point. At which point, if this water, this piece of water that's falling from the sky comes down and goes up under here and then finds its way in there, that is magic water. That is holy water. So Hope that you learned something. Then we're gonna take this piece and put it under that. I wanted to demonstrate the difference between what it did look like and what it will look like. Then, what do? Roofing is all about layers. So then we'll take our roof and go underneath this and then shoot it and then silicone that hole right there. And then people will be like this. That looks beautiful. And I'll be like this. Yep. It's pretty much the blink and it's done. It's like you guys weren't even paying attention. I'm embarrassed for you. All right, so we put the soffit up. I don't remember if we've done that before. Obviously, we caulked everything. We put the siding on the gables and then we put flashing in. I think I did show you that. And then we painted 2 coats and then put the roof up and then touched up all the stuff. And look at that, my track hoe has a home. My Bobcat, I'm gonna be honest with you, I gotta charge the battery. I'll move it over here, but it also has a home and I love it. All right, now, when you watch a story, a movie, or when you hear a story or read a story, what character do you identify with? Do you identify as the hero? Do you you look at the hero and the things he does, or she, and think, I feel like I'm that person? Or are you like, I identify with the villain? You're like, the things that person or creature, monster does, I do that, I identify with that. Or are you like, I'm the damsel in distress? Or some extra that nobody's ever seen? Are you the person that's been in 500 movies and you've never even recognized their face or their name? The reason why I'm asking is because you are the hero in your story, and you should be. But if you lay there doing nothing, like heroes at the beginning of a story, your story never becomes an adventure. You never become the hero. You just are. And you were made to be a hero. So you have a vital role in God's big story and in your story, and what you do ripples on through eternity. And I know you're thinking, no it doesn't, but it does. The consequences of the good things you do and the consequences of the bad things you do ripple on forever. Now this is another important thing. Paul says that the body of Christ has many different members, okay? So he says, does the eyeball get mad at the foot because the foot can't see? No, it's not the foot's job to see. Does the liver and the pancreas, or they're like, oh yeah, well I'm not as good as you because blah, 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 and so I'm just not gonna try? No, because each body part, even though it's all part of the body, has to do its own function. And if it doesn't, then the entire body suffers. And if you think I'm wrong, go get a splinter. Everything that your body is about is like, I want to get that splinter out of me. That tiny little thing stuck in your hand or your finger or whatever, you're like, that is an emergency and I need to deal with that, right? And so if everybody is doing their part in the body of Christ and the family of God, then we run smoothly. But when something isn't, we don't. Now, this is something I think is interesting, okay? In corporate America, and I've done a lot of things for corporate America, you trying to get rid of that? What happens is you've got a bunch of different parts of the same company, and then I see them bickering with each other. I see them like trying to get the other ones in trouble, trying to badmouth the other part of the company to the customer. I'm thinking, you're part of the same company. You know that, right? Like I saw at this one company and they'd be like, oh yeah, well the exhibit side sucks, but we're great because we're the AV side, and the AV side sucks because we're part of the corporate and we're management. The project managers are better than the people in the warehouse and whatever. I'm like, you're a $4 billion a year company. And if you guys fight each other constantly and try to make it difficult for other parts in the company, and then talk bad about your company, other parts of your company, to the customers, therefore they get discounts and give them all the inside information, that's dumb. You think you're gonna get profit sharing after that? You're not. I mean, you will, but it'll be less. Work together as one. And I'm also saying this for the church, because look, I see people all the time like, oh yeah, well they believe this and they believe this and they believe this. I'm like, I don't really care. I honestly don't care what people say they believe. Most people don't know the doctrine of the church they go to or the denomination they go to. What I care about is, how do you live your life? And are you making it hard on everybody else? Are you the splinter in the body of Christ? Are you the cancer in the body of Christ? Or are you doing your part? And are you overcompensating to go help somebody else that's not doing their part or that needs a help, a helping hand? Be that person, right? Let's start working together, and maybe we can actually get something accomplished. Rather than fighting each other, talking bad about each other, it's nonsense. We're better than that. And be the hero. Because look, when you do the right thing, you give somebody else the courage and really permission to also do the right thing. And then your little group grows, and somebody in that group is going to go, I want to do that too. I want to be the good person. I want to be the hero too. And they will start to rise up. And then around their little group, more people will come, and then they'll be like, I also want to do that. And you will inspire more and more people. And it is entirely possible for a candle to light another candle and still keep its flame. You don't lose anything by helping somebody else, right? You light the flame, they light the flame, everybody, and all of a sudden, we got a good place to live, rather than this is horrible, because it's on us. People are like, the government sucks, blah, 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 and I'm one of those people. But we are the government, okay? We are the government, and we are the people, and we are the body of Christ. So look, if we want the world to be better, become the hero. I love you guys. All right, bye. Oh, hey there. So today is New Year's Eve, and I'd like to buy you all a drink. It's gonna be a water, you split it however you want, I don't care. All right, so, speaking of water, let's come closer. This is a hose bib, right? That's what they call them, that's the official word. And this was leaking, but not all the time, okay? Which was puzzling, because they were like, when we turn it on, then it leaks down in my wall and it comes out here. And I was like, that's not great. Let's see how this works in real life, okay? In real life, you have, this goes very deep because it's frost free, okay? So then this thing screws on there, and what happens is this valve closes, let's see, we can get in there, way deep in there, and then it closes back in here, okay? And so, then we're like, I think it's broken somewhere in this copper part. And we bought some new ones, turned off the water first, that's important. And then we took out the old one, and lo and behold, it burst. So when water freezes and it's in a compacted area, right, if it expands, so if it's just like a cup of ice, then it'll just grow a little bit and nobody cares. But if it's in a confined area, just like an explosion, it will burst the copper and it'll split just like that. And so what do we do to solve that? Good question. We unscrewed this and we put in another one, and that's it right there. The end. I hope you guys learned something. So here's a good tip, a couple tips for you in life, okay? First of all, when I pay with a credit card, I like to say, keep the change. People really like that, so you might want to start incorporating that. And the other thing is, and I think it's very chivalrous of me, is I like to open automatic doors for people. I'm like, I got that for you. Hey there. So today I need to clean up this mess. It's not pretty. But it reminded me of another mess that we were in, okay? Now, a lot of people are like, look, I'm not gonna go to hell. I'm not as bad as Hitler. And I'm like, but that's not who you're comparing yourself to. You're comparing yourself to Jesus, to like pure holiness, to God. If you don't measure up to that, you don't go to heaven. Sorry, that's the way it works. Not like, oh, I didn't kill a bunch of people. Like, but so in James it says that he who commits one sin is guilty of all sins, because now he has become a lawbreaker. Now, what does that mean in the spiritual world? Okay, what that means is that now you have incurred a debt that can only be paid through blood. You know, if we incur a debt here on earth, a lot of times it involves money. And so if I owe you $100 or $1 million or whatever the case may be, then I will not be forgiven of that debt until that money is paid back, okay? But imagine that in the spiritual world, you have a debt of disobedience and sin. And just to be clear, sin is a deliberate disobedience of a known law. This isn't a mistake. This isn't like, well, I aimed for the middle and I got off by an inch. That's not what a sin is. A sin is, I knew better, I was told not to do this, and I did it anyway. I deliberately, on purpose, disobeyed God. And here's the thing, we're not talking about like some petty thing like I didn't eat all my broccoli or something like that. We're talking about things that do make a big difference, okay? When God says don't do this, there's a reason not to do it. And when we're like, I know better than you, then we put ourselves like in his seat. And he's like, oh, really? Let's just see about that. Now, moving back to, so if you end up with a big debt that you cannot pay, then there used to be a place called debtor's prison, okay? Now, what would happen with debtor's prison is you would go to debtor's prison until you paid back the full debt. Obviously, if you're in debtor's prison, you can't work to make money to pay back the debt, so you really, in essence, never come out of debtor's prison. That's like a sentence for the rest of your life, unless somebody else paid the debt for you. Okay, so in the spiritual world, the debt that has to be paid is death and hell. It has to be blood. He's not interested in your money. Like, money comes and goes as pieces of paper. It's numbers on a screen these days. That's all it is. It doesn't really matter. But what he wants is something has to be paid. Some debt has to be paid to make this thing right, because what you've done is horrible. Okay? Now, we can't pay our own debt except for basically to go to debtor's prison, which is hell. We are going to be stuck in hell forever because we can never repay that debt, because there's no way for us to repay that debt. Therefore, we're stuck there forever. But what if somebody else came along and paid that debt for you? Okay? What if another criminal came and paid that debt for you? Well, that would be impossible, because that criminal already had a debt that they couldn't pay. So for them to be like, oh, don't worry, I'll cover his debt, good luck, buddy. That's not going to happen, because you can't even pay your own debt. So it doesn't count. So in the Bible, in the Old Testament, what had to happen was something innocent had to die in the place of something guilty to pay that debt, right? Because basically they're saying, I will give my blood, I will give my life to pay off your debt. A couple things had to happen. You can't have the lame, the blind, the sick, the diseased. Like, you can take my trash and kill that on my behalf. God's like, not impressed. It had to be blameless, pure, like a white lamb, no blemishes, not lame, not blind, no fault in it, right? And in a lot of cultures around the world, this is a true thing. Like, something innocent has to die for something guilty, okay? And this is the whole concept of a sacrifice. And so in other cultures, I've heard that they have to ask the goat or the lamb or whatever, like, are you willing to do this? Now, obviously they don't speak it English, so that makes it more difficult. But they've always got some custom or some ritual that then the animal agrees to it, therefore the sin debt is paid, okay? In this case, Jesus is the Lamb of God, and Jesus came down and paid that debt for us. At which point, when he was on the cross, his last words were, "It is finished." But that is also a marketplace saying where you would pay for something and then it's stamped on there, paid in full. And so when Jesus died on the cross for us, he paid our debt in full. There is a heavy weight that goes with that. He took all of our sin and all of our pain and all of our awful things that we've done, and he was like, I will pay that debt for you. And it's easy to brush that aside and go, I'm not that bad. But we are, and we were hopeless. And he came and became one of us and humbled himself, and he died in our place when he didn't have to. And I think that that is a beautiful thing that we should take seriously. I'm gonna get back to cleaning.